Unknown to Adaoma, some evil men had lurked in the corner of the path that led to her mother's hut. She was still walking home happily when all of a sudden, 3 men came out of the bush and bundled her into the bush together with her baskets. Terrified, Adaoma pleaded for mercy, but these men beasts would not let her go. They tied her hands with a rope and stuffed her mouth with dirty clothes before sealing it off with another cloth to make sure her screams do not escape. The 3 men forcefully took turns in raping Adaoma, and by the time the 3rd person was having his way with her, Adaoma had already given up the ghost. Her poor young body could not bear the brutal force with which they descended on her. When they had finished, the 3 of them thought of how to cover up their evil tracks. They slit her throat, tore her clothes, and took the money she made from selling the farm produce and abandoned her by the bush close to the sidewalk. They wanted to make it look like a thief had done the evil act. Many years ago, in the small village of Umudim, there lived a man, Nchedo, and his young wife, Osi. This young couple had an only child called Adaoma. Adaoma was the apple of her parents' eyes because her parents waited for 3 years before the gods blessed them with Adaoma. Anything their daughter Adaoma wanted, the parents always went out of their way to provide it for her. Nchedo, Osi, and Adaoma were the perfect family. In their village, whenever the villagers wanted to use a family as a good example, they always referred to Nchedo's family. And so, Adaoma grew up to become not just a beautiful and attractive girl, but a good-mannered one as well. At a very young age of 14, suitors were already coming for Adaoma's hand in marriage. But Nchedo was adamant that he wanted to train his only child properly before giving her away in marriage. To protect his young daughter from falling prey to the numerous men that swarm around her, Nchedo took Adaoma with him wherever he went, except for village meetings. Seeing that Adaoma's father, Nchedo, wouldn't let any man near his beautiful daughter, some of the men conspired and decided to get Nchedo out of the way. Nchedo was still on his way home from a village meeting he attended when all of a sudden his stomach started rumbling and aching him so badly. He held his stomach tightly, breathing heavily while trying to scream for help, but he couldn't utter any words. Within minutes, with no one to help him, Nchedo laid straight on the village path, dead. It turned out that some men had poisoned his drink at the meeting, and he innocently took the drink. That was how Nchedo's wife, Osi, was turned into a widow. Osi and Adaoma grieved and mourned Nchedo's death. It was not easy living without their father and husband, but they knew they had to move on. Meanwhile, there was just something about Adaoma that kept on attracting men to her like bees to a honeypot. Even though she was a very beautiful girl, but she was not the most beautiful girl in the village. Neither was she the most behaved girl, but it seemed like the gods favored her specially. Osi kept on getting suitors seeking for Adaoma's hand in marriage, but she would always ask them to wait for her to grow up a little more, since she was only 15 at the time. While some of the men took the advice and decided to wait, others did not share the same opinion. Adaoma continued to be very helpful to her mother. She would run errands for her, help her out in the kitchen and in the farm, fetch firewood, go to the stream, and fill up all their earthen pots with water. Osi loved Adaoma so much that she always thanked the gods for giving her such a wonderful daughter who never complained no matter what. Even when they didn't have enough food to eat, Adama would still not complain. She always wore a smile that could melt a hardened criminal's heart. Meanwhile, some wicked men who had been luring Adama to take advantage of her but had failed on several occasions decided that they would have their way with her, with or without her consent. On one fateful Afro-market day, Adama had gone to the market to sell some of the farm produce she and her mother had harvested from the farm. She was so happy to have sold everything that she was jumping from side to side in excitement as she made her way home with an empty basket. Unknown to Adama, some evil men had locked in the corner of the path that led to her mother's hut. She was still walking home happily when all of a sudden, 3 men came out of the bush and bundled her into the bush together with her basket. Terrified Adama pleaded for mercy, but these men beasts would not let her go. They tied her hands with a rope and stuffed her mouth with dirty clothes before sealing it off with another cloth to make sure her screams do not escape. The 3 men forcefully took turns in raping Adama, and by the time the third person was having his way with her, Adama had already given up the ghost. Her poor young body could not bear the brutal force with which they descended on her. When they had finished, the 3 of them thought of how to cover up their evil tracks. They slit her throat, tore her clothes, and took the money she made from selling the farm produce and abandoned her by the bush close to the sidewalk. They wanted to make it look like a thief had done the evil act. While all these were happening, Adama's mother, Osi, was busy at home cooking Adama's favorite meal to welcome her back from the market. When she stood up from the kitchen stool to go and fetch some water from her earthen pot for her cooking, she stopped her left toe on a big stone. She cried out in pain and immediately had the premonition that something was wrong. In their tradition and belief, hitting one's leg on a stone or on any other hard object was a bad omen. Osi's thoughts immediately went to her daughter, Adama. She suddenly became worried why she was not home yet. She quickly finished up with her cooking, put the food down from the fire, and went to the market in search of her daughter. On reaching the market, she was told that Adama had left for home a long time ago after she finished selling her farm produce. This made Osi even more worried. She started crying out and calling for help. Without wasting time, some men gathered and divided themselves into 2 groups in search of Adama. They searched the whole evening into the night and could not find her. By this time, Osi was sure that something terrible had happened to her daughter, but she was silently praying to the gods to protect her daughter and bring her home safe and sound. The search teams kept on searching until one group decided to scout the bushes near the path from the market that led to Adama's home. It was there that they saw Adama's body abandoned by the bush close to the pathway. They took her body home to her mother. The sun had barely risen over the small village when Osi's anguished cries pierced the still morning air. Her wails echoed throughout the village, drawing other villagers from their huts. They found the young widow collapsed on her doorstep, cradling the lifeless body of her only child. Osi's heart shattered into a million pieces at the horrific sight. She clutched Adama's lifeless form, rocking back and forth with eyes closed as she mourned her beloved daughter. The villagers surrounded Osi, offering words of comfort and sorrow, but their platitudes offered little solace to the devastated mother. Adama had been Osi's whole world. her reason for leaving after the death of her husband 1 year ago. Now, that precious light had been extinguished in the most cruel and senseless way. Later in the day, after a quick burial had been arranged for Adama, the elders of the village gathered to discuss the tragedy. They knew they must act quickly to identify the killer and prevent any further violence from tearing the village apart. An urgent meeting was called, with Osi reluctantly leaving Adoma's graveside to join the solemn proceedings. The village chief, Oku, listened grimly as the rumors and speculation swelled. Several villagers reported hearing the sound of a struggle somewhere near the bush on their way from the market yesterday, but they were too afraid to investigate. None, however, could provide a concrete lead on the identity of Adoma's murderer. Osi sat silently, her face a mask of anguish. She knew in her heart that her beloved daughter's death was no random act of violence. Adama had been targeted, and she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. "We must find the killer," Chief Oku declared, his voice firm but laced with sorrow. "This heinous crime cannot go unpunished. The spirits of our ancestors demand justice." The elders nodded solemnly, each offering suggestions on how to proceed with the investigation. Some advocated for calling in the village securities, while others insisted on using traditional methods of divination and ritual to handle the matter. Osi remained silent, her mind racing. She knew that the wheels of justice in her impoverished village was often slow and many times inconclusive, and she couldn't bear the thought of Adoma's killer evading punishment. A dark resolve began to take root in her heart. As the meeting concluded and the villagers dispersed, Osi approached Chief Oku. "I will find the one responsible for my daughter's death," she said, her voice low but unwavering, "and I will make them pay." Chief Oku regarded Osi with a mixture of pity and concern. "I understand your pain, child, but vengeance is not the way. Let us trust in the wisdom of the ancestors to guide us to the truth." Osi shook her head, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "The ancestors have failed me. This is the second time my blood have been taken away from me in the space of 2 years. I can no longer rely on the gods to fight for me." She paused, a spark of something dark flickering in her gaze. "I will do whatever it takes to ensure that Adoma's killer is brought to justice." With that, Osi turned and strode away, leaving the bewildered village elders in her wake. Little did they know, the widow's grief had just begun to transform into something far more sinister. In the days that followed, Osi withdrew from the community, retreating to the small, dilapidated hut she had shared with Adama. There, she spent endless hours in solitary contemplation, her mind consumed by a single consuming thought: revenge. As the investigation into Adoma's murder stalled, Osi grew increasingly desperate. She knew that the village elders would never uncover the truth, bound as they were by their adherence to tradition and their fear of the unknown. No, if she wanted justice for her daughter, she would have to take matters into her own hands. Osi's thoughts drifted to the stories she had heard as a child, tales of powerful witches who wielded dark magic to punish their enemies. The idea both terrified and enticed her. Could she really become one of those feared practitioners of the occult? Did she have the strength and the will to delve into the realm of the supernatural? The more Osi dwelled on the possibility, the more the idea took hold. She knew that the path she was considering was a dangerous one, fraught with peril and moral ambiguity. But the pain of losing Adaoma had hollowed her out, leaving her with a burning need for vengeance that drowned out all other concerns. And so, Osi made her decision. She would become a witch, and she would use her newfound powers to track down Adaoma's killer and deliver the ultimate punishment. With a renewed sense of purpose, Osi began her transformation. She sought out the village's oldest and most feared witch named Iheme and begged her for guidance. At first, Iheme was reluctant to share her knowledge, fearing the consequences of meddling in the dark arts. But Osi's desperation and unwavering determination eventually wore down the witch's resolve. Iheme recognized the deep well of grief and rage that burned within the poor widow, and she knew that trying to dissuade her would be a futile effort. Better to guide her and try to steer her towards a path of less destruction, she reasoned. And so Iheme took Osi under her wing, teaching her the intricate rituals and potent concoctions that were the foundation of witchcraft. Osi absorbed the lessons with a single-minded focus, her hands trembling with anticipation as she learned how to harness the power of the natural world. As the weeks turned into months, Osi's transformation deepened. She became adept at casting spells, able to summon the spirits of the ancestors to aid her in her quest. She learned to manipulate the elements, conjuring raging storms and scorching flames to do her bidding. And most importantly, she began to uncover the identity of Adaoma's killer. Through a series of divination and rituals, Osi discovered that the people responsible for her daughter's murder were none other than Chief Oku, the revered village chief, and 2 other elders. The revelation sent shockwaves through Osi's already fragile physique. How could the man she had trusted, the one who had promised to seek justice, be the one who had taken Adaoma from her? Osi's grief transformed into an all-consuming rage, and she vowed to make Chief Oku and the 2 elders pay for their crime. With Iheme's guidance, she set about crafting a plan of unspeakable retaliation. Under the cover of the night, Osi crept through the village, her senses heightened and her magic pulsing through her veins. She made her way to Chief Oku's hut, where the unsuspecting chief slumbered peacefully. With a few well-placed incantations, Osi summoned a swarm of venomous snakes, which she commanded to strike at the sleeping chief. Chief Oku's agonized screams shattered the stillness of the night, drawing the alarmed villagers from their homes. But by the time they reached his hut, it was too late. Chief Oku lay dead, his body contorted and his skin blistered from the snake's deadly bites. In the chaos that followed, Osi slipped back into the shadows, her heart pounding with a savage triumph. She had exacted her revenge on the first person, and the satisfaction she felt was both exhilarating and deeply unsettling. As the days passed, the villagers struggled to come to terms with Chief Oku's sudden and gruesome demise. Suspicions and accusations flew, but no one could provide a credible explanation for the chief's mysterious demise. The elders convened once more, this time to select a new leader for the community. Osi watched the proceedings from afar, her expression void of any emotion. She knew that the villagers would never suspect her of the heinous crime, for she had carefully covered her tracks. And so, she bided her time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. It wasn't long before another target presented itself. One by one, the elders who were involved in the untimely death of our only child, Adama, all underwent the same fate as Chief Oku. By the time the second elder died in the same gruesome manner as Chief Oku and the other elder, the villagers knew that this was no ordinary coincidence. The village native Dibia, who had made divination and found out that Osi was responsible for the deaths, did not utter a word. During his consultations, the gods had warned him not to expose Osi, since she was only fighting for justice for the death of her only daughter. And that was how Osi got her vengeance. She spent her remaining years on earth lonely and sad, but happy that at least her daughter, Adaoma, would rest easy, knowing that she revenged her death. We have come to the end of the story. What do you think about the story? Did Osi do the right thing? Was she right in meting justice on the killers of her daughter? Please share with me in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. And support me by sharing, liking, and subscribing to my channel for more interesting stories. Remember to click the notification bell. Until I come your way again soon, stay happy.